All right, everyone, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast right here on the CLNS Media Network. Brian Hines and Alex Barth, as always, joined by a very special guest that everyone here should be very familiar with, Evan Lazar from Patriots.com. He is our eyes and ears in Wisconsin and Green Bay these last few days. So, Evan, even though you took your CLNS debut with Taylor last night that we're not salty about, but welcome back to the Patriots Beat here.
Thank you. It's like riding a bike. I right back into the Restream studio and everything. I know where all the buttons are. And I know how to. I think I still have the login. The login to the host chair if I wanted to hijack this whole thing, but now back and I would have done your Patriots Beat first, all right, but Taylor had the schedule just worked out that way, so it wasn't anything personal with anybody. All right.
Hey, Evan.
Hi again.
Yeah, a long time no talk.
There you go.
It was funny. Brian was saying before we came on, he was like, so you guys are doing 3 podcasts today, like, isn't it going to get repetitive? So we did Catch 22 on Patriots.com. That's up. People can go check that out. We're going to do Sports Hub Patriots podcast after this. It's going to be about 3 hours when it's all said and done. It's all going to be different stuff. Like I was telling Brad, like we just have that ability that we'll have there'll be some overlap, obviously the big stories, but like, it's going to be a different conversation.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I know that Brian wants to ask me a bunch about hunters and kickers here in a second. And, there's some developments there. So I'm not going to lie to you. It's some things have been happening here in Green Bay and the state of Wisconsin, which I will tell you, look, Lambeau's awesome. It's a lifetime to come here to Lambeau. I'm not really the biggest fan of Green Bay proper. It's a whole lot of like breweries and pubs. Like every menu is the same. But
yeah, sounds fun. Doesn't sound like your kind of thing.
But yeah, we got plenty so we can spread it around and make sure it's not too repetitive for people.
All right. We'll definitely get into the special teams there, but
I know.
I got to start because me and Alex were just saying we were jealous because it sounded like the greatest practice of all time today. So like the offense was cooking, defense was good, high energy, high intensity. Just, what'd you see from the top there?
Yeah, look, I've been covering the team full time since 2019. I've been to every joint practice that there has been to go to since then. And this was the best practice I've ever been to, I would say, for the Patriots in training camp, certainly in joint practices. And I mentioned to Alex earlier that, there was a lot of skirmishes, a lot of dust-ups, but it wasn't anything like last year against Carolina or what we heard and saw from the Jets and the Bucks. Like this wasn't that type of practice. It was highly competitive. It was feisty. There was a juice from both sidelines. I've never really seen at the end of 30 minutes or so, there was, each team's on their sideline, and then you have like a back and forth offense defense, and you kind of go through it almost like it's a game. And the Patriots would make a big play in their sideline, and then the Packers would make a play and their sideline would clear. And I've never really seen that before. It was all like they had just won the freaking Super Bowl or something like that. So that was the energy. I think that you could see from the Patriots and the Packers, but things for the Patriots because there was a lot of good out there today. But just in general, it was a ton of fun. Like the energy out there was just off the charts. And I've seen some people that say that like this is the real show in training camp, not preseason games. But because it's not on TV, a lot of the personality of the players come through even more. They aren't, they know that they're not on camera. So it's a really fun atmosphere in here, especially in a place like Green
Bay. I think even more than that, you talk about the value of the joint practices. You do something in a preseason game that's on tape. You do something in a joint practice that's not on tape. Yeah. So I know you can't get into specifics about formations and schemes, but like, let's compare it to last year. Like what is, and again, I know you have to be vague, but what are you learning about this offense that's different under Bill O'Brien than it was under Matt Patricia?
Well, I think in the baseline, like just from a ground level standpoint, the procedural elements are just so much cleaner. Like you don't see play calls getting called in super late, or false starts or pre-snap penalties, or Mac Jones looking at the sideline and being like, what are we doing, right? Like there's none of that going on. And I know that that's like elementary, and that's the ground. That's not really necessarily setting a high bar for the offense as a whole, but that's how you start to build upon things and become that next level. And I think the other thing, to speak to the next level, the timing in the passing game has, I think, passing day. Even the practices that you guys saw in Foxborough, we were already starting to see the arrow pointing upward on those types of things. So just watching Mac Jones go through this offense and hit those throws with timing, with anticipation, knowing where to receive. Like there's not these moments where he's throwing the ball and there's just nobody there and everybody's looking at each other like who is supposed to be there, right? There wasn't that type of dynamic at all. And I think that that's just been a real breath of fresh air. The scheming and stuff like that is certainly more advanced. I mean, there's more motion involved in this offense. There's more RPOs involved in this offense. And there's a lot more tricks to the trade, even in just like playing 11 personnel when they're playing straight up. You see option routes, you see releases, bunches, stacks, things like that. So there's so much more graduate level stuff from that element of it too.
I wanted to talk Mac real quick because, we're not there obviously, but there was that one play going around Twitter, the touchdown to Bourne. And I think you and Taylor were kind of tweeting about it. It looked like he had a lot of good throws with anticipation throughout really both practices. And that's how he wins, right? And also what we saw here, a lot of command at the line of scrimmage, something he didn't have last year back with Bill O'Brien. Is that something you're still seeing out in Green Bay against a different defense? We saw that a lot, but it could be easy when you're going against, the same Patriots defense for 2 weeks. Are you still seeing that type of stuff at that command at the line of scrimmage? And is he still, those anticipatory passes or those?
No,
just to piggyback on that.
Yeah.
When he is making the changes at the line of scrimmage, like they were working in Foxborough, he was making the right changes. Is that still the case? Is he reading the Green Bay defense as efficiently as he was reading the Patriots defense, which obviously he was familiar with?
Yeah, it's a good question. I haven't seen quite as many checks or audibles or play changes quite as much at the line of scrimmage than what we saw back at home. I don't think that that's necessarily about maybe him knowing the defense better or anything like that they wanted to run practice, where they didn't want to have him kind of taking over, if you will, as much in these practices as back home. But I wouldn't say I've seen as much of that out here, but not in like a negative sense. It hasn't been as prevalent. I think the biggest thing is what Brian, you were getting at, was just the throws with anticipation have really been improving. Yesterday, it was more like deep outs to the sideline that he was throwing with anticipation. And one of the cool things about some of these places is that you guys get to actually stand at field level, like, not on the sideline, but kind of back off the sideline. And so I was standing right in front of the throw he made to Kayshon Boutte on the deep out yesterday. So the ball was coming right at me. And when you see the ball come out of his hand and you're looking at Boutte and he just runs right into it because, of that anticipation, I'm like, that's a good throw. I mean, that's a pretty darn good throw right there. And then the one to Bourne was exactly on time. They run that little inside hitch and then the dig behind it. And Bourne shook Jair Alexander, and as soon as he got his eyes back, the ball was on him. So those are the types of plays that I think that we're seeing more and more from Mac. And then Alex, something that we talked about on Catch 22, like the trust throws, like just throwing them around Devontae Parker, or around Hunter Henry, and just big receivers are going to make those contested catches or those catches outside their frames and put it in the catch as I go make a play. Those are things that I think we've also saw over the last couple of days as well, but certainly especially today. So there's a lot of positives from Mac. I said this, we always joke, Alex and I, about the best practice Mac Jones has ever had that we've obviously been able to see. Not that we don't get to see the regular season ones, but the first practice against the since his rookie year is like the pinnacle. That's the standard for Mac Jones that he's always trying to beat. I thought today was right up there with it. I'm not sure if I'm ready to put it over it yet, but I thought today was in the conversation as one of the better Mac Jones I've ever seen. The ball did not touch the ground a whole lot, and there weren't a whole lot of passes that could have been intercepted or were intercepted. It was a really impressive showing. He seems really confident and like he knows exactly where he needs to go with the football. And since he's mobile second reaction play, playground football quarterback, he's got to be on time, and that's certainly what we're seeing.
All right, so talk to me about the receivers then. Where is I thought before Mike Gesicki got hurt, he was a guy that Mac had developed excellent chemistry with. I think Hunter Henry's a guy we know he has excellent chemistry with. Kendrick Bourne, it was there 2 years ago. Last year, he didn't play a lot. Devontae Parker was in and out of the lineup there first year working together. Where's his chemistry at specifically with the guys at the wide receiver position, and who stood out in that regard?
Yeah, I think, Devontae Parker has been quietly having a good summer. I don't even know if it's quietly anymore at this point. I think he looks improved. It looks a little bit more explosive coming off the line of scrimmage and able to get some vertical separation, which is something that we always talk about with him is separation. He's always down near the bottom of the league and like next gen stats and things like that when it comes to that. And I think that he's done a little bit more of that. But in terms of like chemistry and who he throws the best ball to in that respect, it's a comp between Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne. Like, I think both those guys, Henry caught a seam pass today where he was, and as soon as he kind of came out, it was just like right in his hand. It almost caught him, and those are the types of plays that you see a lot with Hunter Henry and with Kendrick Bourne, which makes sense because he's played so much football with those two guys. But I've liked what I've seen out of all the receivers as well. And I think the big one, Booty, I mentioned this on our other show too. I am meeting some crow a little bit out here in Green Bay with Booty. I haven't really been on the Booty train, Brian. I understand he's had some good like one-handed.
He's underselling this. He doesn't even like Demario Douglas, who we're going to get to. But
really,
that's saying that's being a little bit.
We'll get to that, but continue on Kayshon Booty.
I wasn't super impressed with his tape against the Texans either. Got a couple opportunities against off coverage. When he gets man coverage or press, it's been difficult for him to get off of it. But he's been really good in both of these practices. I think the biggest thing that you see with him is the hands and the body control. Like, he's a smooth guy and he's got great hands, strong hands. So those are things that I've been impressed with Kayshon Booty. But I like Douglas. I just look today. Douglas had 8 catches again, right, in practice. Which that sounds like a lot. 7 of them were from Bailey Zappi. All right.
Okay. No, but here's what I want to do.
He's got to do it with Mac Jones against the number one corners on the other team. That's all I'm saying.
He does. But when we were on Catch 22 last week, you kept saying it's too early to know. It's too early to know. It's too early to know. You now have like 4 weeks of practices, a game, 2 joint practices. I'm not going to let you say it's too early. You don't have to tell me he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. All I am saying is, do you believe at this point he's a contributing NFL wide receiver? Yes or no?
Yes, but I think that he's a contributing NFL wide receiver in a certain role. Like,
that's fine.
I'm not ready to.
I'm not even saying you have to say he's a wide receiver 1, but is he a guy that you can put on the field for call it like 30 snaps a game and he'll make you better in those 30 snaps?
So
can he at least be that?
I understand what you're asking about like snap counts, but I know that there's going to be certain types of routes and certain types of plays that I think he's going to be helpful on, if that makes sense. Like, he's definitely the guy that separates at the first and second level the most consistently. His route running at the first level, especially, juke routes, whip routes, like things like that, slants, Like that, he's the best route runner that they have in terms of dynamic routes at the first level. And I also think, they've tried a little bit of throwing screens to Tyquan and a little bit to Juju. I think they routinely look the best when they throw them to Demario Douglas because he's got some wiggle and he's got that burst as well. So I think if you're going to talk about him as like having a certain package of routes where he's running, the number 3 spot and empty, or he's running screens, or he's running jet sweeps, like I can talk to those things. I just don't know if I'm ready to be all hyped up about either one of the rookies. It's just a little too early.
Until that last part, that was good. That was a definitive answer. You had me until that last part. You were so close to sticking the landing. Real quick, while we're on the receivers, and then I know Brian.
I got to be honest. I'm not going to sit here and put the guy in Canton.
Right? I'm like sort of in the host chair in this one, and I want a definitive answer. I want to take from you. I don't know. That's what happens when I get in the host chair. Real quick before we move on from the receivers, just tell me what you saw from Tyquan Thornton today, both the catch and the injury.
Yeah, really. Look, I've been very disappointed. I want to speak for you. I Tyquan Thornton because he's the exact kind of player that drives me up an absolute wall. You see all the physical potential in the world. Like he's got all of the potential in the world to be a legitimate field stretching deep threat in the NFL. But he is very inconsistent with his route running, which is something that they can work on with him if he's available. But he's not always available. So like that, it's just really a difficult situation with him. He had maybe in Tucker, Moss, Rasul Douglas, he had maybe the play of the day early in practice, running a deep over route where he laid out and made a diving catch and hit a big play down the field. And on that play, he landed hard and he gets up and all of a sudden he's getting looked at by the trainers. Like, and we're all, sitting there watching and we're like, he had a 40, 50 yard bomb from Mac Jones, exactly what you want to see. And then immediately gets hurt. And it looked like it was an issue. And, Alex, we talked about that. You hope that it's not the clavicle again, right? You don't hope it's not.
So I have not been able to find this all day. And I meant to ask you when we did the last show, which shoulder did he hurt?
Yeah, that's a good question. We should know this.
What do you mean you don't know? You were there.
We should be better than this. Oh, today you mean?
Today. I'm trying to find which one it was last year. Blank.
Today he hurt the right shoulder. The right shoulder.
I want to say last year was left, but that's not, I don't know. That's just what I think.
I'm looking it up, but all right. He hurt. I couldn't find it all today. Nobody's saying which shoulder was. So it was the left shoulder for him today.
Today was the right shoulder.
Or today was the right. Okay. Today was the right.
Shoulder.
Okay.
So that's the thing with him is he going to be tough? And we knew this with his frame to begin with, but I think what's weird, last year in the preseason, he got hurt being tackled to the ground. That makes sense. Like he got hit pretty hard and he got injured. This one, he just got hurt by the ground. Like he just dove to make a catch and he got hurt diving for the catch. So it doesn't matter. Like it's either, we all were worried about, if he gets lit up coming over the middle, is he going to be able to withstand it? And now he's getting hurt just like diving to the ground and getting hurt on the turf. I'm not I don't have any inside information or anything. I don't know how severe the injury was, but obviously he didn't return to practice. And it looked like another shoulder, clavicle, collarbone, probably more of like a AC joint sprain or break, not like a Gesicki who had the decision. I think this was more of like a bone situation.
Okay, so remind me again which shoulder it was.
Right shoulder today.
Right shoulder today. Okay, so
last year.
I found the video from last year and he grabs at the left shoulder.
Okay. So I mean, but like, yes, that's better, I suppose. But the point being is that his shoulders can't stay healthy, right? Like
not good.
Right.
Yeah, like he can't. He keeps. If he has another collarbone injury, then it's the same injury as last year. So it's so I get so frustrated by it because it's just like you see that he makes this great play and then immediately gets hurt, and that's just the Tyquan Thornton experience.
Yep. All right. Well, speaking of shoulders and pass catchers, no Mike Gesicki the last 2 days. So what have you seen? How have they kind of replaced him? Is it like a Matt Sokol, Anthony Ferkser? Are they going more, 11 with 3 wide receivers? What have you kind of seen there with no Mike Gesicki?
Yeah, we have seen a lot of 11, but Anthony Ferkser is climbing the depth chart in Gesicki's place right now. They've done a little bit of everything in terms of Henry playing more detached, Ferkser playing more detached. Like, it hasn't necessarily been consistent of which guy is playing which role as like the hand in the dirt tight end versus the guy that's standing up. But Ferkser's been involved. He's made some catches underneath the defense. He's not a burner. Like, he's explosive, like seam runner, like Gesicki is, who can make plays down the field. But I think he's a serviceable safety blanket, check it down in the flat to him, sit routes over the middle. And then he's a decent blocker from like a couple different spots, whether it's at the fullback position, back, in line. So I've liked his game. I had him on my roster already in my last roster projection as the third tight end. I just think with these two guys, Henry and Gesicki, knock on wood, they've been lucky with Henry that he's been really durable since they signed him. But he's in the past, and Gesicki's obviously had injuries in the past. So I think in that respect that it's probably best to keep 3 tight ends if they can figure it out. And I think Ferkser right now, Matt Sokol's had like Connor McDermott on the offensive line. Matt Sokol's like a rock. So I haven't necessarily seen anything from him the last couple of days, or even like, the 2 days in Foxborough here. So it's been the Ferkser show. A lot of Henry, obviously, per usual, but a lot of Anthony Ferkser.
Yeah, you mentioned McDermott. I'm kind of, he wasn't at practice today, and I'm not saying that he's going to totally save their offensive line, but I don't know that they're in a spot where they can be throwing away NFL offensive line talent. Evan, I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to phrase this question a little different than I did to you earlier. Brandon Anderson of Action Network he ranked the best offensive lines in the league earlier today. Okay. He is the Patriots 10th. Now, I'm getting ripped on Twitter for saying that's too high. Granted, it's not going to be as bad as it's been because they are going to get guys back. But from what you've seen out there against another defense, and as you pointed out earlier, Rashawn Gary, the Packers' best pass rusher, not taking part in practices. Is there a path to the Patriots having a top 10 offensive line in the league this year? Because that would be, if that happens, they should make the playoffs.
Okay, so yeah, there's a path. Like, we can talk ourselves into pretty much anything.
With who they have on the roster. No, they're not going out and trading for Trent Williams. With who they have on the roster right now.
With who they have on the roster. If Trent Brown is like 2018 Trent Brown, and Cole Strange is the guy that we saw in the last month of the season and not the guy that got taken off the field against the Jets and the Colts, and Mike Onwenu is healthy, and if that I just laid out all of a sudden go all break in their direction, then
Didn't mention right tackle.
I still
that's
think
the what ifs.
But I still think even with right tackle, like if you have 4 really good linemen in the other 4 spots, like you'll figure it out because you can, okay, so that's our weak spot. We slide everything that direction. We, do different things to help the right tackle or whatever the case may be. I think that that's doable. My whole take with the offensive line has always been if they can have a sturdy interior with Strange, Andrews, and Onwenu with a pocket quarterback, that they can survive. Like if Matt can take shallow drops and he can step up in the pocket and then get the ball out quickly, then, we know that you can mitigate edge rush with that. Brady, 25 years. So like, that you can do it that way. But you have to really be rock solid in that middle. And that's why for years with Brady, they kept Shaq Mason, David Andrews, and Joe Thuney together was because that was the core of their offensive line. And right now it's so hard to judge the Patriots offensive line because they don't have their core together. The right tackle concerns are legit. That's going to be a spot that they're going to have to protect and scheme around. And we have to see Trent Brown do it 17 games again, like 18. Like if he's not going to play like he did in 18 or even 19 where he was okay with the Raiders and it's going to be more like last year, then both tackle spots becomes a little bit of a weak point. So I'm still worried about tackle. I have O'Brien, and I also think that they should have a better line than what they've thrown out in practice the last couple of weeks as well.
How's City So looked out there? Because that's been a thing before they left, and then even that preseason game at right tackle. I didn't think he looked great in the preseason, but I don't know how you thought he looked in the preseason. And then has he looked? Has he held his own at right tackle against Green Bay?
Yeah, I didn't think he looked too great last Thursday night either, but I was talking to, our offensive line expert in the media, Greg Bedard, about So, and he seemed a little bit more optimistic about So than me. I don't know. I have a tough time with players like So because I think in general, he's a converted guard. So like if there's one thing that I really want to see out of him, it's play strength. Like he should be able to hold up play strength wise and then also move people in the run game. And we didn't necessarily see that in the preseason game, which is not exactly great. And then obviously he's got a long way to go in terms of his technique and pass protection because he's learning a whole new technique being outside. So I'm a little bit weary of So being like a serious if he's your starting right tackle week one and he's got his thing off his right side, I'm going to be concerned. I'm going to be really, really concerned. But in terms of him being like a developmental tackle that they can work with and maybe year 2, year 3, he's a serious consideration to start. That's a different story. But I just think if in week 1, then you have that's one of the worst starting right tackles in the league. If City So's your right tackle in week 1.
All right, I do want to get some defense talk in because we didn't do enough of that on Catch 22. But because for the people who missed that one, your thoughts on Zeke so far as a Patriot?
I was really encouraged by what I saw today from Zeke. I thought he ran hard. I think he's in better shape than Twitter does. I know yesterday we started, we shared a lot of pictures of him and people were calling him fat and things like that. I think he's pretty good. Obviously not in football shape yet, but all things considered, you get thrown into a joint practice as your first padded practice. And I thought that he held his own. He had a couple touchdowns inside the 10-yard line, and that's going to certainly be a big role for him. He ran a few routes as well. I mean, it looks like when he gets out in the open field and if he has any burst to run, away from guys or anything like that. But in terms of how hard he ran, I thought he ran really hard. I thought he ran with good power, good physicality, good energy. And I loved what I saw from him, mate. Like, I think that's something that shouldn't be underrated with a veteran guy like this. And didn't bear a shake this offseason with how the contract worked out and the running back market worked out. But he was right involved. And he met these guys like 2 days ago, right? So it's pretty cool to see him like cheering for JJ Taylor. Like when did Zeke Elliott ever interact with JJ Taylor until he got on the team playing on Tuesday, right? So I think that those things are always cool.
Yeah, I thought it was encouraging that he was out there. I figured they might give him a week. We'll see him in Tennessee maybe, but they're participating right out of the bat was a good sign. But let's get to the defense. But before we do so, we will hear from our friends over at FanDuel.
Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. I wonder how many people are going to bet on the Patriots. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/Boston.
Okay. First of all, before I let you get back, you guys have commercials now? Like you're not just doing live ad reads in the middle of the show? You know how many times I messed up doing a ad read in my that's great. I'm glad for you guys, but like that would save me a lot of time.
There's some where like I read it, but it's still a commercial.
His voice.
It goes from like me introducing the commercial into me reading the commercial. I hate it. I hate it. It's very unsettling.
Wow. Look at how far we've come. All right. Sorry. Yeah. I didn't mean to.
All right. Defense. Let's move over there. There's a specific corner I want to ask you about, but before I get to him, Christian Gonzalez, what have you seen the last 2 days? I know there was that play online that, Christian Watson, that lawn ball, seemed like he kind of rebounded nicely today. It looked like he had a pass breakup near the end of practice there, but what have you seen from him going up against, some two guys like Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs this week.
Yeah, Christian Watson in particular has been extremely impressive. He's a really good player that I think is going to be a really good player this year. Explosive, big guy, can move though, like has a lot of wiggle at the top of the route for a 6'3" receiver, and obviously we know about the straight line speed. I think Gonzalez has held up pretty well in press man. When he's got that ability to just man up guys, and he's more press guy, he's not going to really get into people's faces too much at the line of scrimmage. He's more going to play that basketball mirroring guys. But I think he's really effective in man coverage. Every time Christian Gonzalez gives up a play, it feels like it's in zone or off man, where he's got to work with more space and he has to learn how to operate in space a little bit better. On the touchdown that he gave up to Watson, both Christians, it's very confusing. The one that he gave up to Watson, I think you could probably put a little bit of blame pie in both Jalen Mills. I did again. Christian Gonzalez is,
figured out
on that one. Jalen Mills had the middle of the field, and Christian Gonzalez was on the deep third. I think the biggest thing with Gonzalez that I see in zone is he just gets a little bit sucked up into the trash in the middle of the field, and sometimes it takes the eye candy that they want him to take a little bit too often when he's eyes on the quarterback. So they ran a little bit of an underneath crosser, and they ran the deep crosser over the top, and Christian Gonzalez was on the side of the formation from Watson at the start of the snap, and instead of just getting depth on the deep third and letting the guy go underneath him, he got sucked up closer to the line of scrimmage. And then once he realized that Christian Watson was on the deep over from the other side of the formation, he saw the, oh shoot, and tried to get back and make the play, and it was just too late. So they got to get him a little bit cleaner in zone, but he moves so well out there in man, and he's really solid in man. The pass breakup he had today against Wicks was in man coverage. So I don't think that there's any concern about him long-term. This is more about getting him more well-versed in zone and also in their system zone.
I had one corner. There's a lot of that depth cornerback talk, right? Someone behind Jack Jones, Christian Gonzalez on the boundary. It's been a lot of the rookies, Isaiah Bolden and Amir Speed, but I feel like Shaun Wade's name just keeps popping up. On Twitter, he had a few pass breakups, it looked like, against Green Bay. He had, I thought, a pretty good game inside against Houston, against John Mechie. What have you seen from Wade, and is this a guy who maybe is starting to make a push for a roster spot here?
Yeah, I actually really think he is, and I'm trying to watch Shaun Wade a little bit more this week and next week, because I really liked what he put on film against the Texans, and I feel like he's warranted to get some more buzz and some more love actually making the 53-man roster. I think the biggest thing with him is that if they let him play inside, then he's going to be serviceable. He's not an outside corner. He was an outside corner at Ohio State, got burnt out there playing outside corner, and gets burned in playing outside corner. It's a little bit like Jalen Mills, where he's just a better player inside. He doesn't have the long speed to carry routes down the field from the outside, but when he plays in the slot, he's got a little bit more size than like a Miles Bryant or a Marcus Jones. He can play a little bit of slot corner. I really like what he can bring to the table in that respect. I think it's tough for him because not that they've invested big in Bolden or Speed, but they did use draft picks on those two guys, and those two guys have a lot of potential as well. So corner deep, and they love Miles Bryant. So you're talking about keeping 6 or 7 corners. That's a lot of CBs to keep, but I would Shaun Wade, if he has another good preseason game on Saturday night, and then obviously in Tennessee, as somebody that might be able to push Miles Bryant off the roster.
I just wonder, is he far enough away, far enough removed from the draft evaluation process that he's a guy they could get on the practice squad and bring back? Are there going to be teams clamoring to add Shaun Wade to their 53-man roster?
I think it depends, because if he plays it well in the preseason again, these next 2 games, and he does it playing inside, then I think there's going to be teams that are like, well, we knew he was corner all along. Like that's where he played well at Ohio State, and people have just been playing him out of position this whole time. So that's not really on him. I understand. I kind of agree with you. I think that ultimately they could probably chance it with the crowd, but I look at him as somebody that has just been miscast really since his last year at Ohio State.
Yeah.
And some team is going to pick him up and say, whether it's the Patriots or it's his next team, if he gets cut here, and say, well, if we play him in the slot where he belongs, then he has really good film in the slot from college and from the pros.
All right. How about Marte Mapu? Finally out of the non-contact jersey. He's out there hitting. Is he looking the part?
He is looking the part so far. It's not a huge sample, and he's somebody that I'll definitely be zeroing in on Saturday night, and hopefully we get to see him in a game so that we can put it on film, be able to dissect it as we do from there. But I think the biggest thing with him is that his physicality is present at all times, but they like him on the tight ends. I don't. It drives me crazy. It's just not going to agree with them on, which is fine. You know, they're Bill Belichick and I'm me. So like, go ahead and do your thing, I suppose. But you know, they like him on the tight ends. I do think that they have some concerns, or maybe not concern is the right word, but just they're going to play more in the middle of the field as a zone safety, like, you know, a center fielder, robber, like that sort of thing, to turn the football over, which we all want him to do that more often, I think. But if it's at the expense of Mapu playing a man on tight ends more often, it kind of stinks. I would just love to and be next to Jawan Bentley and be that sideline to sideline Matt Milano, Deion Jones, like that guy that we've all been clamoring for, instead of putting him like the Patrick Chung role where he's just covering tight ends. Maybe that's where Jalen Mills can be more instead, and then that would free up Mapu to play more linebacker. But I hope that they settle on him being at the second level. But so far, I am on tight ends in these practices, and they have some good tight ends. Musgrave has been pretty good. He's been threatening the seam a lot against the Patriots defense. I had one today that I thought Jordan Love missed the throw and probably should have been caught for maybe a touchdown. And Josiah Deguara is not no slouch. So they've had some good tight ends here in Green Bay, and it's been a good battle. But I like Mapu, you know that. I would just want to see him play linebacker.
Okay, you said something else in there though that I meant to bring up. You said that they're using Mapu in a way that like you don't agree with, but this is what they're going to do, so they're going to do it. Yeah. I saw a couple of mentions today, to go back to the corners, that Miles Bryant was covering Christian Watson. Why?
Okay.
Was that zone? Was that a switch? Because people know this. I like Miles Bryant better than most. Christian Watson, tall and fast. Miles Bryant, not tall, not fast. There are matchups for him. Manning up on Christian Watson is not it. If that is something that they think he has in his bag, that's going to be a problem.
Okay, no, I wouldn't like get too carried away. Like, obviously, they're not really like game planning. So I don't really think that they're looking at it like that deeply about matchups. But on that play, Christian Watson was running out of a stack, so he was the offline receiver in the stack. So essentially, in that situation, he was the Z. I think Miles Bryant just happened to be the guy supposed to be covering the Z in that package, and it just happened to be Christian Watson. I really like Matt LaFleur, that he does a lot of different things that make defenses' life tough with, releases and obviously window dressing or eye candy or whatever, with all the motion and stuff like that in the backfield. And some of that stuff has given the Patriots defense a little bit of problems. So there's one thing that I can say, yesterday more so than today, but there's one thing that I can say that like that's something the Patriots defense will come away from these two practices and need to work on. It's how to handle some of the leverage, conflicts that they're going to be put into, and their like they're with their corners, and they need that help. Like they need the inside help from either the linebacker level or the robber level at the top at safety. And that's still, I think, a work in progress of figuring out where it's going to come from or not in certain situations. And there's a ton of communication that's going on And yesterday was more pronounced than today. Yesterday, they got an earful from Mike Pellegrino at one point. The secondary did, because they were not playing in sound football. So I think they'll try to coach up after this.
All right, one more thing on the secondary. We've talked a lot about how they're going to replace Devin McCourty, both on the field and off the field. And I think you look at that leadership intangible that he brought, and I think he was in some ways a tone setter. Now, it's a very different tone, but is Jabril Peppers starting to fill some of that void? Because just reading the reports today, it felt like he was the guy that was setting the tone for the secondary. Just having watched Jabril Peppers since he was at Michigan, me personally, that's a guy I want setting the tone. I love the tone that he sets. No BS, no nonsense. He is coming on the field to punch you in the mouth. And I would love it if he's going to take on kind of that tone-setting role for the defense, because I think that would be great. If you have guys like him, you have a guy like Keon White, you have a guy like Juwan Bentley, if those are the guys setting the tone for your defense, that you should be afraid when you come on the field as an offensive player. I think that's what those guys will do.
Yeah, Jabril Peppers is a lot of fun to watch. Like, you guys know, we're not allowed to report on like what they say on the field. I wish I could tell you what he was saying to Jair Alexander and what Jair Alexander is saying back. I'll tell you off the air. Sorry to all the listeners.
Text it to me.
It was hilarious and just awesome. Two guys that love to talk. Like, Jair Alexander's a big trash. It was awesome to see them go back and forth. And I think Jabril Peppers is an energizer bunny. Like, he's definitely a tone setter. He's definitely a physical tone setter in terms of the way that he plays, but also he's got a lot of spice to him in terms of how he carries himself and the way that he talks. And I thought that, not to point any fingers at the Packers, but they took some exception to like Keon White just basically like manhandling some people and boo-hoo. Like, sorry that he's like 280 pounds and like hard to block. Like, that's the NFL. And I think for the most part, the Patriots were kind of Packers, not saying that that's always what was going on, but I think with Peppers, you definitely see a little bit of that tone setting, that energy, that juice. And him and Jair Alexander, if they have like, this was like Hard Knocks and those guys were mic'd up for that would be must vision. That was.
All right, you mentioned him there quickly, Keon White. It was worth noting. Looked like he got banged up a little bit. I thought there was some reports that like he stayed on the sideline, so maybe nothing too serious. Is that what you saw? And then what did you see while he was out there? Because he was so good, last Thursday. Was he kind of building off that? And what did you see on the injury?
Yeah, so yesterday he absolutely cleaned out one of the vices on as a like basically I think he wasn't a gunner, but like he was covering a punt and somebody over from the Packers, like that got like oohs and ahs like from the crowd, and this is this 280, 205 like in space, just being able to. And I think that's what surprised me the most about him is I look at his body type and I'm like, there's no way this guy can stand up at the end of the line of scrimmage and like play as like a Judon outside linebacker, but he's so athletic that he somehow is able to do it. That's been incredible to see. And I thought that he was playing great, and the injury didn't look very serious. I think that he stayed on the sideline. He didn't go back into team drills, but he was watching as a spectator. This injury that they wanted to get x-rayed or something like that, he would have just left immediately and gone and done that. So I think you can breathe a sigh of relief with Keon White. I'm not sure we're going to see him on Saturday night. They might play it safe, but I don't think that that's going to be like a long-term injury or anything like that.
All right, I want to look ahead to Saturday night a little bit because this is our last show before the game, but it is that part of the show now where you have to break Brian's heart and tell him what you told me earlier on Catch 22 about.
I heard it's not looking good. I heard
it's not looking good for your boy, Brian. I don't
called you out on Catch 22 when he said this to me before.
Really?
I did. I gave you a shout out. I don't know what's going on with Bryce Behringer, but it hasn't been pretty the last 2 days, and it wasn't very pretty
when we saw him. Yeah, the last few days in Gillette, it wasn't that pretty either. And he shanked one Thursday in the game. So
he's got a little bit of yips. I don't know what it is, and I'm not a punting expert like you and Alex, so you guys can tell me about the technique and everything that's going on with him. See him on Saturday night, but obviously we all know that punting is like a golf swing, and like you got to do it over and over. Once, if you lose it, if you have like some sort of issue with your swing, it just drives you crazy, and you have to go ahead and fix it for the next 2 months. So that's sort of what you hope is not happening with him, because once you lose that and it kind of starts to go off the rail, you have like a Caddyshack situation where you're playing catch up. Or is it tin cup? Which one is it?
Yeah, okay, so you're going to use this golf analogy, but you don't golf, so that doesn't make any sense, right? You guys know about punting, so I'll talk about golf, which is my expertise. I've been trying to get you to golf for 2 years, so you don't do it. It is a two-person competition.
Is it like tin cup or Caddyshack? You didn't answer my question.
Oh, Caddyshack. I don't know what movie you were referencing. That was way too vague of a reference. Those are both golf movies. Yes.
Yips. I don't know which one it is. We're all like,
I think you're talking about Tim Cobb.
Yeah.
I think
okay.
you are.
Maybe the chat can help us.
Greatest game ever played. Whatever. It's a two-man competition. How does Corliss Waitman look? I think that's the other part of this that you have to bring in.
Well, so Corliss Waitman, he led off the drills today, which I think we sometimes look into as media as.
I just saw the life leave Brian's eyes.
Is that the first time he's done that this year? I think.
Right, like is it QB1? You're right, situation, right? Yeah. So that's a difficult one to swallow for you, Brian. And the thing is, with Corliss Waitman, his times are consistent, but there's no ceiling. Like it's just 4 seconds on the dot every single time he punts the football. But with Behringer, you can see the leg, and we all know that he's huge. What I worry about with Behringer, and I know your question was about Waitman, but I would just remember how quickly Jake Bailey lost it. Like all of a sudden, he went from an all-pro punter to not being able to punt the football, and just like that, they obviously put him on IR. It was injury related for a little bit, but then he came back and it was still bad. So you just worry with those types of guys that you lose it and then it never comes back. I don't know if Corliss Waitman is ready to push him just yet, but they need to figure out, Joe Houston and Cam McCord and Joe Judge need to figure out what the heck is going on with Behringer.
Jake Bailey beat out Michael Turk down there in Miami. Was that your guy?
That was my
Alex?
guy. Michael Turk was my guy from the Shrine Bowl. He was good.
So they cut.
If Behringer can't kick, hit Michael Turk back.
I believe Michael Turk is a free agent right now.
Well, maybe they should be getting Michael Turk here then to compete.
So I'll tell you this: he had a good relationship with Cam McCord. He really did at the Shrine Bowl. So if they need a leg, he would be a guy. All right, Evan. Not just what are you looking for on Saturday, because obviously it's the whole preseason peepers peeled thing, but like specifically that maybe building off of the last game or something we didn't get a chance to see in the last game. What are you looking for on Saturday?
Well, I do think, and I know Mac Jones in the starting offense got a lot of run in the last couple of days, but I'm going to see a little bit of Mac on Saturday night. No inside information, just a hunch, but I think that what you see often in these preseasons now is like the second preseason game is just dip your toe in the water, get the cobwebs out, take a few hits, get back out there without the red non-contact jersey. Him maybe for a couple drives. Obviously, if he has a great first drive and they march right down the field, we'll see you in Nashville, Mac. But I think in terms of this game, we'll see Mac for maybe a first drive. Then I think we're going to be for the rest of the first half from there. And then I think it's going to be the Malik Cunningham / Trace McSorley show in the second half. But I'm excited to see what we can see from the starting offense. Obviously, it makes our life a lot easier once you can go back and dissect the film and see what everybody looks like and where everybody, things like that. So that'll be good. But I hope that they take what they did today and set what they were doing today and not like what they did yesterday, so that's going to be the big question is, can they keep the arrow pointing upward? But I think you see for a drive or two on Saturday, and then I think they have to play Mac for at least for the first half against the Titans. I think it's important for new offensive system. Juju's a new guy. Offensive line has some new faces. I think for those guys to build some chemistry.
Because they'll have almost like 2 weeks after that last game, or like a week and a half, right? Now that they don't have that 4th preseason game.
Yeah. It's a weird situation, I think, and I still don't really like it. Like I don't know really what the solution is, because teams aren't going to want to push back training camp a week because they want to practice it a time, but at the same time, gap in between, it's almost 2 full weeks, I think, before you have a game. So
they'll play Friday, roster cuts will be Tuesday, and then their next game will be the next Sunday.
Right. Yeah. So it's over 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah. 2+ weeks.
Yeah.
All right. One last quick thing. You mentioned him there. Malik Cunningham. Are we going to see him still at quarterback? Was that what they were doing in Green Bay? More of what we saw the last 2 days here in Foxborough, like that package at quarterback?
Yeah, so not today as much. Today was a lot of Mac and Zap, I think, exclusively. I don't even know if Trace McSorley threw a pass on Thursday, but yesterday Malik Cunningham did have 4 reps at all run plays, 2 handoffs, 2 keepers. And yet I think that they're experimenting with this thing. I don't know how real it's going to be. I joked with Alex that like he's getting his wish that their Patriots are turning into a college football team, because they're going to have like their back and their running quarterback, and they're going to have 2 kickers, and like it's just going to be a college football program. But I think with Cunningham, they're trying out a little this package, because I think on the goal line and short yardage, they're not necessarily going to roster a James Devlin. Like they're not going to have that traditional fullback. So to be more efficient on 3rd and 4th and 1 goal line carries, the best way to do it is to probably have a running quarterback. It just makes the most sense from a numbers point of view. And that's all it is. It's just how many hats do we have and how many hats do they have? And if you have the quarterback can run, now you're +1 on every play, and that's an advantage. So I think that they're trying to see if it will work, if they can do it without compromising what they're going to do 5% of the time, and so on and so forth. But it's an interesting package, to say the least.
And I'll tell you this too. You mentioned Malik Cunningham didn't play a ton today. We know Bill Belichick's thing about how it's not just a game. The reps are distributed evenly between the joint practices in the game. So not seeing a lot of Malik Cunningham tells me, and I guess Trace McSorley too, but like, I think Malik Cunningham is going to get a lot more than just 1 drive in this game. I wonder if you see like Mac for like a drive or 2, Bailey Zappi finishes out the first quarter, and then it's Trace in the 3rd and Malik in the 4th. Or
yeah, I got to be honest with you. I don't know how much Trace McSorley we're going to see at all. Like,
or maybe it's that. Maybe it's Mac for the first drive or 2, Zappi for the rest of the first half, and then Malik Cunningham gets the whole second half.
Yeah, I think that might be. I don't know if they are ready to have Malik Cunningham play a whole half, because you have to think. When they played him in that 1 drive, they basically ran the same 3 plays over and over again. So I don't know if they necessarily have anything more in their bag for Malik Cunningham to go out there and run like 40 offensive plays, and it's just the same 3 plays. I don't know if that's how they necessarily want to go about it, but at this point, I mean, we'd all rather see Malik Cunningham. No offense to Trace McSorley, but we'd all rather see Malik Cunningham in this game, and I can't imagine that their thinking is much different. Like they kind of know that Trace McSorley is like a fringe practice squad backup quarterback, and anything exciting with Cunningham. So I would like to see them play Cunningham. I think we all would.
Yep. Alex is dreaming of that college offense. He sent me like every Penn State touchdown that was in T formation earlier this morning, dreaming about a backfield of Zeke Elliott, Mondre, and Malik Cunningham. So.
Oh my God. Well, that's the college thing, right? With Tebow, wasn't it like Chris Leak in Tebow or something like that? Like,
well, my favorite one is the Belldozer, Blake Bell at Oklahoma. I think that was with Bradford, but I'm not positive.
Right. These college teams, they have like their between the 20s pocket passer quarterback, and then they have like their specialty running quarterback.
Right.
Bill Belichick has always said that he's like, that's not going to happen. Like a 2-quarterback guy ever, because it doesn't necessarily work in the NFL. I think we've seen that over the years in the NFL, but I don't know. Maybe he's changed his mind.
He had James Franklin up in the spring, install that T formation. But all right, that'll do it from here on the Patriots Beat podcast. Evan, thank you so much for joining us today. If you're not already following Evan, go follow him on Twitter at Evan Lazar. Go read all of his work over at patriots.com. Me and Alex will be back at some point over the next few days to recap the Patriots' second preseason game against the Green Bay Packers. But until then, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.